Welcome to the TrialSite News Roundup. Today we have a story about another New York State Supreme Court justice, this time with an ivermectin order for an 81-year-old farmer. We'll discuss what happened here and what's been going on in the state of New York. And so, from TrialSite News, I'm Adrian, and our episode starts now. So for this episode, we're going to be discussing a news story from the Buffalo News written by Dan Herbeck. This is now the third time that a New York judge has issued an order compelling hospitals to administer ivermectin. In this case, John Swanson, an 81-year-old farmer from Stafford, New York, which is a rural area east of Buffalo, was infected with COVID-19. He was on a ventilator and, according to the legal affidavit, was on death's doorstep while at the United Memorial Medical Center, which is part of Rochester Regional Health. Now, apparently, the patient was given one dose of ivermectin, which, according to the affidavit, had an immediate positive impact as he started breathing again. But in what is becoming a similar New York State story, the hospital doctors then refused to give follow-up doses of ivermectin, and the patient's family moved swiftly for justice. Swanson's wife, Sandra, hired the same attorneys that were able to convince other New York State judges to compel other hospitals to administer ivermectin to dying patients. Now, in this case, Sandra Swanson was quoted as saying that she definitely thinks the ivermectin is helping him. She also told the local press that the hospital has been denying her any visitation with her husband. Now, when the Buffalo News reached out to the United Memorial Medical Center, they declined to comment on the Swanson case. So, this is now the third New York State case where rural or regional hospitals denied COVID-19 patients ivermectin treatment, despite the requests of families and their doctors. However, thanks to the efforts of a savvy law firm, Law Office of Ralph C. Lorigo, judges are ruling on the side of the patient. So, what is going on here in New York? Well, before we get into that, a reminder for our audience. We here at TrialSite News always recommend seeking advice from a physician for treatment in regards to COVID-19. Additionally, as of the filming of this episode here in the US, the official guidelines from the FDA and the National Institutes of Health are as follows. First, the FDA has cautioned against its use for COVID-19, saying that they have not approved ivermectin for use in treatment or preventing COVID-19 in humans. The FDA has also added a notice about the use of the animal version of ivermectin, saying that one should never use medications intended for animals on yourself. Ivermectin preparations for animals are very different from those approved for humans. Secondly, the NIH has a softer stance on the subject of ivermectin with a more neutral stance, neither for nor against the use of the drug. They say that there is insufficient data to recommend either for or against the use of ivermectin for the treatment of COVID-19. Results from adequately powered, well-designed, and well-conducted clinical trials are needed to provide more specific, evidence-based guidance on the role of ivermectin in the treatment of COVID-19. So back to New York State. There now have been 3 reported cases in which the family of elderly or seriously ill COVID-19 infected patients were denied ivermectin treatments. While dozens of studies from around the world show overwhelmingly positive results, regulatory authorities and apex research bodies are hesitant to accept any of the positive data yet, and have pounced on any data that shows neutral results. Meanwhile, outspoken groups such as the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance and others have been reporting on the accumulating positive data associated with ivermectin research around the world, which had been reviewed by family members of Swanson. And so, despite hospital refusals to treat these 3 patients, the New York families have turned to a couple of attorneys, including Ralph C. Lorigo and John Manier, both with West Seneca, New York-based Law Office of Ralph C. Lorigo. Now, in the first case, which we reported on, Lorigo's firm managed to secure a judge's declaration that Millard Fillmore Suburban Hospital must treat an 80-year-old New York State patient staring at death from COVID-19 with ivermectin. The hospital was then compelled to provide this care for Judith Smenkiewicz, and she would go on to rapidly improve and recovered and is now returned home. Then, a second time, a patient made a legal appeal in New York that we at TrialSite News covered. Another New York judge made a similar order to help save the patient. In this case, Judge Frank Caruso, the New York Supreme Court, Orleans County, made a preliminary move for the plaintiff, Robert Dickinson, a physician and husband of the plaintiff, compelling Rochester General Hospital to follow the physician's orders and allow the ivermectin treatment. And so, with the state Supreme Court Justice Frederick Marshall now issuing an order in a third case directing the hospital to give Swanson 4 more doses of ivermectin, Sandra Swanson's next obstacle is to see her husband. She told the Buffalo News that they held the phone to his ear, and I read to him a long list of people who were praying for him every day, about 20 people. But I need to see him. At this stage, however, there is no way to allow the patient's wife to at least come to the door to see her husband. Meanwhile, the vaccination work is well underway here in the United States thanks to Operation Warp Speed. Never before have effective vaccines been developed at such speed. But vaccines are not by any means the entire solution. The National Institutes of Health acknowledges that therapies must be coupled with vaccines to overcome COVID-19, as well as other measures such as personal protective equipment, social distancing in hotspots, and so on and so forth. To this point, the NIH is now supporting therapy studies, such as AstraZeneca's AZD7442 as a prophylaxis and post-contact treatment. There are also other possible investigational products in clinical development for use at early onset and mild to moderate cases, which include those from Pfizer, Merck, and others. Now, you can visit the government-funded Active2 program to see some of these examples. Now, all this being said, repurposed drugs also show significant promise as well. For example, we have discussed at TrialSiteNews.com the fluvoxamine research led by Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, which also included an interview that I conducted with the principal investigator, Dr. Eric Lenz. Now, they now lead a phase 3 contactless clinical trial using fluvoxamine to treat COVID-19. Proponents of fluvoxamine now believe that the existing trial data speaks for itself. They say that the drug should be used at least on an emergency basis, as it may benefit COVID-19 patients by slowing the progression of symptoms. Now, we here at TrialSite News believe that a healthy market-based democracy requires open and honest discussion and debate about the various potential therapies in development. Our mission as a news company from the very start was all about more transparency and accessibility for research with an emphasis on the trial site and study participant. As such, we invite everyone viewing our channel to join us and the TrialSite News community to discuss and debate this and other current events. You could do so by clicking on the link here or by visiting us at TrialSiteNews.com. And that, my friends, brings our episode to a close once more. As always, thank you so much for joining us on our program today. From TrialSite News, I'm Adrian, and I will see you all next time.